The desert heat pressed down on Prescott, Arizona, like a hand against glass. Even at 6 in the evening, the asphalt shimmered with waves of heat that made the horizon dance. Ethan Cole wiped the sweat from his forehead with an oil-stained rag and stared at the empty garage bay where his son used to work. 3 months. It had been 3 months since the accident. "Ethan, you coming to the diner?" Mason Graves stood in the doorway of Cole's auto repair, his uniform still crisp despite the heat. The sheriff had been Ethan's friend for 20 years, long enough to know when to push and when to let silence do the talking. "Not hungry," Ethan said, his voice rough from disuse. He hadn't spoken much since the funeral. Words felt like stones in his mouth, heavy, useless things that couldn't change anything. Mason stepped inside, his boots crunching on metal shavings. "Riley's worried about you. Says you haven't been answering her calls." Riley Quinn, his son's girlfriend. The girl who had been at the hospital that night, her hands shaking as she tried to explain what happened. Street racing, a curve taken too fast. Tyler Cole, 22 years old, gone in an instant of screaming metal and shattered glass. "Tell her I'm fine," Ethan lied. "You're not fine. You're working yourself to death." Mason picked up a wrench from the workbench, felt its weight. "Tyler wouldn't want this." The name hit Ethan like a fist. He turned away, focusing on the carburetor he'd been cleaning. "What Tyler wanted doesn't matter anymore." "That's where you're wrong." Mason set the wrench down carefully. "I talked to Harper Lane at the impound. She said you claimed the wreck. What are you planning, Ethan?" Ethan's jaw tightened. The 1969 Dodge Charger, Tyler's dream car. They'd found it at an auction 2 years ago, a rusted hulk that most people would have sent to the scrapyard. But Tyler had seen something in it. Gold under the rust, power under the decay. They were going to restore it together, father and son, turning twisted metal into something beautiful. The crash had destroyed it. Again. "I'm going to finish what we started," Ethan said quietly. "I'm going to build the car he dreamed of." Mason studied his friend's face, the hollow eyes, the gray threading through his dark hair, the way his shoulders curved inward like he was carrying something too heavy. "And then what?" "Then I'll know I did right by him." The sheriff sighed. He'd seen grief do strange things to people in his years on the force. Some drank, some fought, some just disappeared into themselves until there was nothing left but a shell. Ethan was choosing something different, something obsessive, but at least it was something. "All right," Mason said, "but you need to eat, you need to sleep, and you need to let people help you." He pulled out his wallet and dropped 2 20s on the workbench. "For the oil change I never paid you for." After Mason left, Ethan stood alone in the garage. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the empty bays. Through the window, he could see the sun dropping toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that Tyler used to photograph. He walked to the corner where he'd covered the Charger's remains with a tarp. His hands trembled as he pulled it back. The car was devastation-made metal. The entire front end was crushed, the hood folded like paper. The driver's side door hung at an angle, and the windshield was a spiderweb of cracks with a dark stain at the center that Ethan tried not to think about. But underneath the destruction, he could still see the bones of what it had been, what it could be again. "I'm going to fix you," he whispered. "Every piece, every bolt, just like we planned." The garage offered no response except the tick of cooling metal and the distant howl of a coyote somewhere in the desert darkness. The work consumed him. Ethan closed the shop to customers, hanging a sign that read, "Closed for renovations," though everyone in Prescott knew the truth. He was building a monument to his grief, and they gave him the space to do it. Every morning at dawn, he unlocked the garage and didn't leave until after midnight. He stripped the Charger down to its frame, cataloging every damaged part, every twisted piece of steel. The engine block was cracked beyond repair, so he ordered a new one, a 4040 Magnum V8, the same engine Tyler had wanted. The transmission was salvageable, but the suspension, the brake lines, the fuel system, all of it needed to be rebuilt from scratch. Connor Blake, who ran the parts store on Main Street, started keeping special hours just for Ethan. "You know," Connor said one afternoon as he handed over a box of brake pads, "Tyler used to come in here talking about this car. He had the whole build planned out in his head. Paint color, interior, everything." "I know," Ethan said. "I was there for most of those conversations." "He talked about you, too. Said you were the best mechanic in 3 counties. Said he wanted to be just like you." Connor's voice softened. "He was proud to be your son, Ethan." The words should have brought comfort, but they only made the weight heavier. Ethan paid for the parts and left without responding. Back in the garage, he lost himself in the work. There was something meditative about it. The precise torque of a bolt, the careful alignment of parts, the way his hands knew what to do, even when his mind was somewhere else. He worked through meals, through the heat of the day, through the cold desert nights. It was during one of those late nights, around 2 in the morning, that he first heard it. "Dad, you're putting that in wrong." Ethan froze, a socket wrench in his hand. He turned slowly, but the garage was empty except for shadows and the skeletal frame of the Charger. Exhaustion. That's all it was. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours in days. His mind was playing tricks. He went back to work. "It needs to be rotated clockwise, not counterclockwise, remember?" This time, Ethan's hands started shaking. That voice. Tyler's voice. The same tone he'd used when they worked together. Patient but slightly exasperated when Ethan made a rookie mistake. "You're not here," Ethan said aloud. His voice echoed in the empty garage. "You're not here." But his hands changed direction, rotating the part clockwise. It clicked into place perfectly. Ethan stepped back from the car, his heart hammering. He looked around the garage, at the tools hanging on pegboards, at the posters of classic cars Tyler had put up, at the calendar still showing March, the month of the accident. "I'm losing my mind," he muttered. "No, you're not. You're just tired." The voice came from behind him now. Ethan spun, but saw only the workbench where Tyler used to sit, eating pizza and sketching modifications on napkins. "This isn't real," Ethan said firmly. "Grief does this. Stress. Sleep deprivation. I'm hallucinating." "Does it matter?" The voice sounded closer now, almost like Tyler was standing right beside him. "If it helps you finish the car, does it matter?" Ethan closed his eyes. Part of him wanted to run screaming from the garage, to call Mason and check himself into a hospital. But another part, a deeper, more desperate part, wanted to stay, wanted to hear his son's voice, even if it was just his broken mind trying to cope. "Tell me about the paint," Ethan said quietly. "You never decided on the color." "Midnight blue. Deep enough to look black in low light, but blue when the sun hits it right. Like the sky just after sunset." Ethan nodded slowly. He remembered that conversation now. They'd been at a car show in Phoenix, standing in front of a '67 Mustang, and Tyler had pointed at the paint. "That's the color," he'd said. "That's the one." "Midnight blue," Ethan repeated. "Okay." He went back to work, and this time, when the voice guided him, "Check the torque on that bolt. The fuel line needs to route under the frame rail. Don't forget to seal the gasket." He listened. The neighbors started to talk. Dana Steele, who lived across the street, told her book club that she heard 2 people in Ethan's garage late at night. Avery Cole, no relation to Ethan, swore he saw 2 shadows moving past the windows. The stories spread through Prescott like wildfire in dry brush. Riley Quinn finally showed up one evening, her face drawn with worry. She knocked on the garage door until Ethan opened it. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks," Ethan replied. He didn't invite her in. Riley pushed past him anyway. Her eyes went to the Charger, which was starting to look like a car again instead of a corpse. "Oh my God, you're really doing it." "Said I would." "Tyler would be—" Her voice cracked. He would be so happy to see this. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Riley's eyes were red-rimmed, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was grieving, too, and he'd been so buried in his own pain that he'd forgotten that. "I miss him," Riley said simply. "Every day I miss him. And I miss you too, Ethan. You're not the only one who lost him." "I know." "Then let me help. Let someone help you." Ethan wanted to tell her about the voice, about the late-night conversations with someone who wasn't there, about how working on this car was the only thing keeping him from drowning. But the words wouldn't come. "I need to do this alone," he finally said. Riley's face fell. She nodded once, then turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. "He loved you so much, Ethan. Don't forget that while you're in here talking to ghosts." After she left, Ethan stood in the silence for a long moment. "She's right, you know. You're pushing everyone away." "They don't understand," Ethan said to the empty garage. "Neither do you. Not yet." The weeks blurred together. Ethan's beard grew wild, and his clothes hung loose on his frame. Connor Blake started including protein bars with every parts order, and Mason stopped by every few days to make sure Ethan was still breathing. The Charger transformed under his hands. The frame was straightened and reinforced. The new engine sat gleaming in the bay, every bolt torqued to specification. The transmission was rebuilt, the suspension replaced, the interior gutted and ready for restoration. Jordan Cross, the painter who'd done work for Ethan's shop before, came by to quote the paint job. "Midnight blue," Ethan said. "The deepest shade you can mix. Needs to look almost black." Jordan whistled low. "That's going to be expensive. 3-stage paint, clear coat, the works. You sure about this?" "I'm sure." "Tyler chose this color?" Ethan hesitated. The truth was complicated. "Yeah, he chose it." Jordan studied Ethan's face, seeing something there that made him nod slowly. "All right. Give me 2 weeks to prep and paint. But Ethan, after this car is done, you need to figure out what comes next. You can't live in this garage forever. I'll deal with that later." While Jordan worked on the paint, Ethan focused on the interior. He ordered custom seats, the same racing buckets Tyler had circled in a catalog months before the accident. The steering wheel was leather-wrapped, the dashboard restored to pristine condition. Every detail had to be perfect because Tyler would have noticed every imperfection. "Don't forget the sound system," the voice reminded him. "You promised we'd put in something good." Ethan smiled despite himself. That had been a running joke between them. Tyler loved his music loud, loved the way bass could make your whole body vibrate. Ethan had always complained about the noise. He ordered a premium sound system, top of the line. Tyler would have loved it. Late one night, Zoe Vance from the diner brought him a plate of food. She'd been Tyler's favorite waitress, always sneaking him extra fries and calling him honey in a way that made him blush. "You're wasting away," Zoe said, setting the plate on the workbench. "Eat. I'm not leaving until you do." Ethan picked at the burger while Zoe looked at the car. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Tyler would be so proud." "Would he? Are you kidding? You're building his dream. Not many kids get that. He should be here building it with me." "I know, honey. I know." Zoe's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. "But he's not, and you can't bring him back by killing yourself in this garage. When this car is done, you need to start living again." "What if I don't know how to do that?" "Then you learn. 1 day at a time, 1 mile at a time." She headed for the door. "Finish that food. And Ethan, whatever you're hearing in here late at night, it's not real. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we need our ghosts until we're ready to let them go." After she left, Ethan ate the burger. It was the first full meal he'd had in days. "She's smart," the voice said. "Always liked her." "Tyler, if you're really here—" Ethan spoke to the empty garage, feeling foolish and desperate at the same time. Tell me this isn't for nothing. Tell me there's a point to all this." The garage was silent for a long moment. Then, "The point is, you're finishing what we started together. The point is, you're showing me that love doesn't end when life does. The point is, you're building something beautiful from something broken. Isn't that enough?" Ethan's eyes burned. He pressed his palms against the Charger's fender, the metal cool under his hands. "I should have been there that night. I should have stopped you from racing. You couldn't have. I made my choice. A stupid, reckless choice, but mine. You can't carry that, Dad. It's too heavy. I don't know how to put it down. You're learning. Every bolt you turn, every piece you install, you're learning. This car is teaching you how to let go." The tears came then, hot and unexpected. Ethan Cole, who hadn't cried at the funeral, who hadn't cried at the hospital, who'd been stone and steel for 3 months, finally broke. He sobbed into his grease-stained hands, his body shaking with the force of grief he'd been holding back. The garage held his pain in its concrete walls, and somewhere in the darkness, a voice whispered comfort that might have been memory or might have been something else entirely. When Jordan brought the Charger back, the paint gleamed like liquid night. In the sunlight, hints of deep blue showed through the black, exactly as Tyler had described. Ethan ran his hand over the smooth finish and felt something close to peace. "She's a masterpiece," Jordan said. "Honestly, Ethan, this is some of your best work. Maybe your best ever." It had to be. The final assembly went quickly now. Ethan installed the seats, connected the wiring, mounted the wheels, chrome 5 spokes that caught the light like stars. The sound system went in, and when he tested it, the bass rattled the garage windows just like Tyler would have wanted. 3 months of work, 3 months of 16-hour days and sleepless nights, 3 months of conversation with a voice that might have been grief or exhaustion or something he didn't have words for. But now, finally, it was done. The 1969 Dodge Charger sat complete in the middle of the garage, looking like it had rolled straight out of a dream. Midnight blue paint, racing seats, rebuilt engine, every detail perfect. The car Tyler had imagined, the car they were supposed to build together. Mason came by the evening of completion, along with Riley, Connor, Jordan, Zoe, and a handful of others who'd watched Ethan's obsession unfold. They stood in a circle around the Charger, nobody quite knowing what to say. "You did it," Riley finally whispered. "It's exactly how he described it. Exactly." "Keys in the ignition," Ethan said. His voice sounded strange, like he hadn't used it in days. "Someone should drive it." "You should drive it," Mason said. "You built it." Ethan shook his head. "I built it for him." "Then drive it for him," Riley said. "Take it out. Let him see what you made." The others murmured agreement. Ethan looked at the car, at the way the overhead lights reflected off its perfect paint, at the interior where Tyler should have been sitting. "One drive," he said. "Just one." He climbed into the driver's seat. The interior smelled like new leather and possibility. His hands gripped the steering wheel, the same wheel Tyler's hands would have gripped, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. Then he turned the key. The engine roared to life with a sound like thunder, deep and powerful. The whole garage seemed to vibrate with it. Ethan gave it gas, and the Charger responded instantly, the tachometer needle climbing. "She sounds perfect," Connor shouted over the noise. Ethan eased off the throttle and looked at Mason. "I'm taking her out to Route 89, the long stretch toward Jerome." Mason's expression tightened. Route 89 was where Tyler had crashed. "Ethan, I need to do this. Then I'm following you." Mason headed for his cruiser. Not negotiable. The sun was setting as Ethan backed the Charger out of the garage for the first time. The desert was painted in shades of orange and gold, the mountains dark silhouettes against the sky. He drove slowly through Prescott, feeling every eye on him, hearing every engine rumble through the streets. At the edge of town, where the houses gave way to open desert, he stopped at a red light. Mason pulled up beside him in the cruiser. gave him a nod. The light turned green. Ethan pressed the accelerator, and the Charger launched forward like a bullet. The power was immense, pushing him back into the seat. The engine screamed, the tires gripped the asphalt, and suddenly he was flying down Route 89 with the wind roaring through the open windows. This was what Tyler had felt. This freedom, this power, this absolute rush of speed and sound and motion. "Fast, isn't it?" The voice was back, clearer than it had ever been. "Too fast," Ethan said, easing off the gas. "No such thing as too fast. That's what I used to say, remember?" "I remember. I also remember what that cost you." The road curved ahead. The same curve where Tyler had lost control. Ethan slowed to a crawl, then stopped. He got out of the car and stood at the side of the road where the accident had happened. The guardrail had been replaced, but he could still see the gouges in the earth, the places where metal had torn through sage and sand. "I'm sorry," Ethan said to the desert wind. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry for all of it." "I know, Dad. But you have to forgive yourself now. You have to let me go." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. That's what this car is. It's your goodbye. You built me the dream, and now you have to drive away from it. You have to go back to your life." Ethan's chest ached. The sun was almost gone now, just a thin line of fire on the horizon. Stars were starting to appear in the darkening sky, the same stars Tyler used to photograph, the same stars that had watched his last moments. "I love you," Ethan said. "I'll always love you." "I know. And I love you. Now drive, one more time, fast as she'll go. For me." Ethan climbed back into the Charger. Mason's cruiser was parked 100 yards back, giving him space. He revved the engine once, twice, feeling the power vibrate through the chassis. Then he drove. Fast. Faster than was safe, faster than was smart. The speedometer climbed, 60, 70, 80. The desert blurred past on both sides. The engine sang its high, wild
for just a
song.
moment,
Ethan Cole felt like he was flying, like he was free, like he was with his son again. Mason found the Charger at dawn, parked perfectly at a scenic overlook 30 miles from Prescott. The engine was cold. The keys were on the dashboard. A note on the steering wheel read, "For whoever finds her next, drive her like she was meant to be driven. E.C." But Ethan Cole was nowhere to be found. Mason called in every deputy, organized search parties, combed the desert for miles in every direction. They found footprints leading away from the overlook, heading into the wilderness, but after a quarter mile, they simply stopped, as if Ethan had vanished into thin air. Riley Quinn stood at the overlook 3 days later, looking at the Charger with tears streaming down her face. "He couldn't let go," she said. "He put everything into this car, and when it was done, there was nothing left of him." But the truth was more complicated than that. Some people said Ethan had walked into the desert to die, his work complete, his purpose fulfilled. Others said he'd hitchhiked out of state, starting a new life where nobody knew his story. The more superstitious folks whispered that he'd joined his son, that the line between living and dead had blurred in that garage over those long months. The Charger was impounded as evidence, but when no body was found and the investigation stalled, it was released to Riley as Tyler's next of kin. She couldn't bring herself to drive it or sell it, so it sat under a tarp in Mason's impound lot, waiting. 6 months later, on a cool October evening, Logan Reed, a drifter passing through Prescott, saw the Charger and offered to buy it. Mason, who'd been paying storage fees and wondering what to do with the car, agreed. "It's got a history," Mason warned him. "The guy who built it disappeared. His son died in it before that. Some folks think it's cursed." Logan ran his hand over the midnight blue paint. "I don't believe in curses, Sheriff. I believe in second chances." He paid cash and drove away that evening. Mason watched the taillights disappear down Route 89 and felt an odd sense of completion, like a chapter had finally closed. But on quiet nights in Prescott, when the wind came down from the mountains and the desert was still, People still reported hearing something. The roar of an engine on the empty highway, the sound of tires gripping asphalt, two voices talking and laughing, fading into the distance. The diner stayed open late for customers who never came. The garage remained closed, the renovations sign fading in the sun. And somewhere in the desert, where the asphalt met the sky, a father and son drove together through the twilight, racing toward a horizon that never quite arrived. Riley found peace eventually. She finished college, moved to Phoenix, started a life that didn't revolve around ghosts. But she kept one thing from Tyler, a photograph of the Charger, taken the day Ethan finished it. In the reflection of the chrome bumper, if you looked closely, you could see two shapes. One was clearly Riley, holding the camera. The other was less distinct, but it looked like someone standing in the garage doorway, watching. Mason retired from the sheriff's department 5 years later. His last case was Ethan Cole, and it remained officially unsolved. But in his private notes, sealed until his death, he wrote, "Some men can't survive their grief. They pour it into things, cars, buildings, art, until there's nothing left but the creation." Ethan Cole built a monument to his son, and then he became part of it. I don't think we were meant to find him. I think he found exactly what he was looking for. The Charger changed hands several times over the years. Each owner reported the same thing. It drove like a dream, handled perfectly, and sometimes, just sometimes, when the radio was off and the windows were down, you could hear a voice offering advice about which gear to use or how to take a curve. Nobody kept it long. Not because it was cursed, but because it felt borrowed, like it belonged to someone else and you were just holding it for a while. In the end, the car returned to Prescott. A museum dedicated to automotive history purchased it, and it now sits in a place of honor with a plaque that reads 1969 Dodge Charger, restored by Ethan Cole in memory of his son Tyler, a testament to love, loss, and the things we build to honor those we've lost. Visitors to the museum often comment on the car's pristine condition, the way the midnight blue paint seems to glow even under fluorescent lights. School groups learn about restoration, about craftsmanship, about the dedication it takes to bring something broken back to life. And late at night, when the museum is closed and the streets of Prescott are empty, security guards sometimes report seeing two figures standing near the Charger. A father and son, heads bent together, talking about engines and dreams and all the drives they never got to take together. But when the guards investigate, there's never anyone there. Just a car, beautiful and still, holding its secrets in steel and memory. Just the ghost of an engine's roar echoing through the desert night. Just the story of a man who loved so deeply that he built a bridge between worlds, bolt by bolt, until finally he could cross it himself. The car he died building became the car that set him free.